bring in our friend of the show from 97.1 The Ticket, Jeff Rieger. What's going on, Jeff? How are you?
What's going on? I just wish the Lions owners cared as much as Jerry Jones does right there. I would do a lot for Martha Ford to sound like that. My goodness.
Yeah, that's a thing that happens. Usually they give a little more patience to, let's say, Matt Millen for a while, hung around with his job. And the case seems to be similar with Matt Patricia. I don't even hear Matt Patricia hot seat talk on the national level. Is that a real thing or not, Jeff?
Yeah, it's a crying shame that it's not a real thing. I don't think it is a real thing. I think the only way that Matt Patricia, and Bob Quinn, for that matter, the GM, would have been sent packing was if there was going to be a complete and total embarrassment on Thanksgiving. Like if the fans didn't show up, or if they showed up and protested, or if they showed up in T-shirts that said "Sell the team," then that's the only way the Fords make moves. But it is a crying shame, to tell you the truth. I mean, you guys see it. He went 6-10 his first year. His second year, talking about Patricia, he gets to go out, handpicks all his guys, overpays Trey Flowers, Justin Coleman, Mike Daniels, and they have one of the worst defenses in the league. And I know they're going to tell the Ford family that, hey, we're playing without Matthew Stafford, but the dirty little secret is Stafford was playing awesome in the 8 games that he played. The defense was just horrendous. So, I mean, people in Detroit want him gone so bad, but I'm with you guys. I don't think it's going to happen, and there's not a whole lot of buzz about it.
Obviously, him struggling to coach his team to winning football is the biggest thing. But how much of the perception of him is that Belichick arrogance that he's had from day one? Just the idea as if he's been owed something because he was on the Patriots staff.
No, I think it's a great point. I do. Like, it's weird because you spend your entire life trying to get a gig in the NFL as a head coach, and you would think you would adjust and adapt, and you would think you would come in and know that you don't have the resume of Belichick, so you can't act like Belichick. But that doesn't stop Matt Patricia. We've heard the first year he had a bunch of guys that didn't buy in, so he pretty much shipped them out of town. There were stories as far as OTAs last year that he had lost the team, then they got rolled by the Jets in the first game, and it was a horrendous season, from him going at a reporter for slouching to him showing up late for meetings, and it was written about and reported about. And then this year has been even worse. Like, apparently he's been nicer to the media. He has. And apparently there's more buy-in in the room. But guys, they traded away Quandre Diggs. And that was a safety they gave an extension to. And they decided to trash him on his way out, saying, well, he's not playing good football. He goes to Seattle. He wins Pro Football Focus Weekly #1 safety. And Pete Carroll goes on and on about how he uses his tape, his video, to teach other safeties and how he reminds him of Earl Thomas. They got a 5th-round pick. Yeah, they got a 5th-round pick. This is the Lions, guys. They got a 5th-round pick for Quandre Diggs. You had Glover Quinn. Remember him? Great guy. Great safety. He went on the Pat McAfee show the other day and said, listen, I'm not quite sure. He's a year removed. He retired. The Lions didn't want him back. I'm not quite sure that our guys have enough, talking about the Lions players, have enough love or like in the Patricia system to gut it out the remaining 4 games of the season, essentially saying they just want the season over. I mean, this is a disaster. So I'm with you. Patricia is a rocket scientist. He went to RPI, and he's always the smartest man in the room, and he never answers a question, and he uses 1,000 words to tell you nothing. And the only reason I can think of keeping him in Detroit is if you keep him in Detroit, you keep him away from the Rockets at Nassau. Because if he's this bad as a defensive coordinator, you don't want him getting fired and then going to Nassau to work with the Rockets. That's the only reason I can come.
Talking with Jeff Rieger of 97.1 The Ticket. Now, how much is it, and I think Patricia's a bad coach too, but how much is it on some bad luck with Patricia this year? Because you have all sorts of close games that don't go their way for whatever reason. I mean, in Kansas City, you're right there. Even in the game against the Vikings, they're in the ballpark, and then
Sure.
they make a defensive mistake at the end, and the game is over like that. And then Matt Stafford gets hurt after a game in which it was very close in Oakland, and they almost won that one. So how much is it just sometimes football is weird and there's bad luck involved?
No, I think it's fair. I do. And one of the talking points that Patricia goes on and on and on and on about is the fact that every game is close and that they've led in every game. The only 2 other teams that have done that, I believe, is the Ravens and the Niners. So 2 really good teams, 2 winning teams. But I guess what I would say is twofold. Number one, it's the NFL. it's a league of parity. So, like, there's not too many times that you're winning by 2 scores, right? I mean, usually it's a one possession game, how these games end. So, I mean, I don't think that's some kind of like accomplishment to be close. Now, maybe in Detroit, I guess, maybe, but I don't think that's the greatest endorsement of how good of a coach you are. The second thing is, you are right. There's been bad luck. They've had a ton of injuries. Max Harrison was injured to begin with. Trey Flowers was injured to begin with. They lose Matthew Stafford. But what I would say is, every game they were in, every game their defense failed them. They gave up 419 yards against the freaking Chicago Bears and Mitch Trubisky on Thanksgiving. They lost to a 1-9 Washington team where they took the lead and allowed Dwayne Haskins to run down the field when he looked atrocious the entire game. So it's always been on the defense this year, and that's Matt Patricia's baby. He's a alleged defensive genius. So as bad as they've had bad luck, there's no doubt about it, but it always falls down on that defense. You mentioned the Chiefs game. They played the Chiefs game great, and the city of Detroit had a moral victory parade because they almost beat the Chiefs. It was 4th and 8, and next thing you know, Patrick Mahomes runs for the first down because they rushed 3 and they couldn't get off the field. So it's been a theme all season long. It's been the defense, and that's Matt Patricia. That falls on the head coach, and I think that's what if they were a bad offensive team but a shutdown defensive team, I think they'd have a leg to stand on, and I think the fans would be more understanding of the situation. But the fact that you hired a defensive-minded guy and his defense is so bad, I think that's where people kind of like realize he needs to go.
Real quick, when you all address them, do you call them snacks directly? Do you call them snacks?
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's the greatest nickname in all of football. Matthew Stafford. I think what's fast.
Awesome.
Are you aware that his Twitter name is @Snacks?
I didn't know that.
That is just
how did he get that?
Snacks. I don't know. I mean, he's very rich.
That's pretty amazing. Matthew Stafford. I think
great nickname, great guy. But yeah, go on.
One of the coolest things about I think Stafford is that I think people forget how young he is, and I think we're going to look back 5, 6, 7 years from now and go, oh my goodness, how many yards did he rack up? How did he do this? We almost forget. How will he be remembered? Because it doesn't seem like there's a scenario where things dramatically improve with him and the Lions. What will his legacy be when it's all said and done if this continues?
I think it's a great question. It's something we talk about in Detroit constantly because there's 2 camps of Stafford fans. There's the camp that say he's the best quarterback we've ever had. We love him. He's the greatest. You see his arm talent. He's the best. Then there's other people, and I might fall into this category, that think this guy has never won a big game. He hasn't even accidentally backed in to a big game. I mean, look back to 2016. He was awesome, hurt his pinky finger, lose to the Cowboys, the Giants, and the Packers, and don't win the division. They lose in the first round. He's had another chance where last game of the season, at home, he's got to beat Aaron Rodgers. Can't for the division. 2013, they started off, I want to say 8-3, and lost like the last 5, 6 games of the season because Stafford was horrendous. You guys are right. I mean, he could be a Hall of Famer. When it's all said and done, he's going to be right up there for total yards in a career. He had the game started streak. He obviously threw for 5,000 yards in 2011. But I think he's going to be remembered as a guy that wasn't able to get the job done. And it's not obviously all on him. But when you get paid $30 million a season, I think fans grow irritated with the one constant has been Matt Stafford for the last decade or really 11 years, and they've lost. Now, granted, they've lost for my entire lifetime, so it's not Stafford. But, I mean, the last decade or so, he hasn't been able to been the, I guess, turning point. So I think that's how he's going to be remembered, as a guy that couldn't get the job done. But again, other people will remember him as the greatest Lions quarterback to ever play.
Has anyone ever seen Kirk Cousins and Matt Stafford in the same room? Because if you just slid Kirk Cousins' name in there and it had all those descriptions, it would be almost exactly the same. And as far as Stafford being the best Lions quarterback, I mean, low bar. Like, yeah, I guess Dave Craig, 1994 was my favorite before Matt Stafford, right?
Not many to pick from.
That's like saying he's my favorite zit on my body. Like, this is my,
Thanks.
you know, really. I mean,
I didn't need that, Jeff.
Have been horrendous.
Jeff Rieger, 97, won the ticket. Well, okay, so now David Blough is going to start. And I'm glad that I know how to pronounce his name after watching him on Thanksgiving. It actually turned out to be a fun game, though, on Thanksgiving, which who would have guessed that the most entertaining football game on Thanksgiving of that slate was going to be Detroit and Chicago? So is there any chance, Jeff, that David Blough can operate a decent offense against the Minnesota Vikings, knowing that the Vikings did give up 30 points to the Lions the last time they faced each other?
That's a good question, and you are right, by the way. Blough was really good. Bouncy, will you stop? My dog is barking. I'm sorry.
That's okay. We accept that on the show.
She's very offended by Matt Stafford too, as you can tell. But no, I think David Blough, he was very impressive considering he really didn't get any reps. He just went through walkthroughs, so he was super impressive on Thanksgiving. I don't think there's a chance that they go into Minnesota. I don't, and get a W. They're 2-touchdown underdogs. And I do think there's something to be said about quarterbacks and why they're backups. Blough is an undrafted free agent. Of course, he beat Ohio State at Purdue. But with that being said, Minnesota's had, 10 days, 11 days, 9 days, whatever it's been, to look at Blough, figure out maybe some tendencies. So I'd be shocked if the Lions find a way to go in there and get a W. The other thing, too, is I do think there comes a point in time where kind of what Glover Quinn said comes into play. Like, this is a defense that is horrendous. It's not playing well. They don't tackle well to begin with. So you do wonder, maybe it's only a matter of time before, I don't want to say guys quit, but before that next phase of, hey, we're so close to the season being over. Let's get this thing over. And maybe that compete level isn't as high.
Yeah, that's what we saw last year in Detroit at the end of the year, where the first half was close and then the Vikings got a Hail Mary touchdown and Detroit went like, nope, we're not tackling anybody.
We don't want to get hurt, guys.
The rest of this game. Yeah. What kind of dog, Jeff?
She's a shug. Her name is Bouncy. She's a shepherd pug. Very cute dog.
Very good. Very good. Well, we always appreciate having you on. And someday I feel like, Jeff, and I'm not saying this is soon, we'll have a big Vikings-Detroit game to talk about, and it will be exciting in our conversation.
Yeah. Do you guys have any idea how many of these things I do? And it's always the same thing. It's always like, we can talk about the other team because you guys have postseason. But the Lions are just, meaningless games before Turkey Day. You got, guys, they call them I-75 eyes, by the way. There's a freeway that runs by Ford Field. It's called 75. And there's a chance that most of the players want to get the hell out of town by now. So for as long as I've lived, they've been called I-75 eyes. At this point of the season, when you don't want to play anymore and you just want the season to get done and you want to hop on 75 and get the hell out of Detroit, you get the I-75 eyes. And I think we're going to see some of that in Minnesota.
That's great, man. That's great. Well, Jeff, you are good at your job, so that's why we like having you on to talk about your bad team that you cover. So good job. Thank you for coming on and pet your dog for us.
Yeah, guys, have a great weekend. It's a pleasure.
Yep.